Well, guys, it is time once again for... Love that, Lecter. We definitely do. And this will take us to the end of season 1 now for Hannibal.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the last 3 episodes we're going to talk about, and then the overview of the season. So we're going to talk about, these are all French foods, and some of these before I knew. Sorbet, I know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Potage. This is like roti. Releves. Oh, but right, there would be no silent. The S would be silent. Releve, and then Savareau.
Sauvignon. I want to say Sauvignon, but that can't be the spelling for the wine, right?
It looks like savor. You savor.
Savareau.
Savor.
If you know French, just tell us because it's terrible.
This is sad. But here's what's happening in these episodes. We've got quite the build up here. I mean, we sort of are everything that we've seen so far this season coming together, culminating. Will Graham is
not doing good,
going really more and more mad is the truth.
Oh yeah.
And then we see actually more with Gillian Anderson.
A
lot more with her character as Hannibal's psychologist.
And you've got the Abigail Hobbs storyline wrapping up with all the Garrett Jacob stuff. They say his name a lot, by the way. They love to say, I'm like, who the writer?
Yeah, what's
3 names.
Up with that?
Garrett Jacob Hobbs. Just say Hobbs or Garrett Hobbs.
Yeah.
Just quick it.
Pre-Fast and Furious too. He could have been the original Hobbs.
Maybe that's where they got the inspiration. That horrible murdering. Such a close connection.
Let's make him the Rock.
Well, they got the kind of the shaved head look, sort of.
Yes, you're right about that.
That's about it.
Now I watched the finale actually twice because it has commentary. So I watched it all over again with the commentary with Hugh Dancy, who plays Will.
Cool.
The Brian Fuller, who created the show for TV, and some other guy.
Some other dude.
And then there's a couple of features on here as well. One about all the different effects.
Ooh.
More about, less about the gore effects. So I thought it was going to be mostly about the gore, but it was more about some of the standards and practices effects they had to do. So, for example, when these angels were there kneeling naked by the bed, you could see too much of their butt crack. So they had to cover it up with stuff in post and design different outfits and stuff. Because you can murder a body, you can fillet a body.
You know, I was about to say...
But don't see a butt crack.
No, I feel like that's one of the themes of the show. I'm like, you literally saying that is hilarious.
Isn't this so stupid?
This is some of the
goriest... a little bit of butt crack, but don't worry. They can just skewer a person.
It's literally some of the worst gore I've seen in anything. On TV.
Yeah.
And they're worried about a little butt showing.
Isn't that so stupid?
It's one of the dumbest things.
It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
But, man.
No wonder... We have some violence
in our society
in this country. But then the other one was about the music and the scoring,
good stuff,
which is
atmospheric,
very atmospheric.
Ambience,
they talked about some of the instruments used for the more bizarre effects.
The dream sequences, maybe.
Some of the dream sequence stuff. Some of the stuff with the deer.
Did they mention the opera at the end, the last scene of the last episode?
I don't think they did in that.
Because did you pick up on that as he was entering, it's kind of a callback to...
From the beginning.
Sounds the Lambs.
Yes.
Because I like that.
There's a few calls in the series.
Call forwards.
Called forwards, actually.
Like, haha.
Because we know.
We,
the
Some
audience,
people
know already.
Which is an Easter egg for us, if you're a fan of the Hannibal character, I guess.
Yeah.
By the way, all right, well,
tell me.
Your synopsis is general.
Well,
we'll keep going because I had something I picked up on.
Okay.
I wanted to.
Sort of before we're diving into the episode. I'm sort of just talking about the
stuff
what I learned.
Yeah,
I guess.
Go ahead.
But Gillian Anderson, love her, of course.
Dr. something.
But she was supposed to be an old woman that they wanted to be played by Angela Lansbury. Believe it or not, the whole storyline was different though.
What was the whole storyline?
Well, they didn't really say, but they said they thought it would be interesting because she's, of course, known as such a
nice,
delicate, nice person. Murder, She Wrote, the whole bit.
Granny Potts.
And then dealing with Hannibal, but she was busy. She was doing some sort of Broadway tour or something. She apparently was. Yeah, maybe we could have seen that.
How do you think that would have been? Would have been different.
I mean, it's hard to say because it would have been so different. Because what happened when they aged her down to Gillian Anderson gave her that entire backstory of the abuse and the early retirement and all of that kind of stuff. Lansbury, it makes sense she'd already be retired because she's old. So I think what they did here is, more layered. But who knows what they would have done with that character.
Well, that would have been interesting. It's kind of cool to know that she would have been down to be part of the show.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Well, think about it. I guess it would have been tamer, but she was fine with Murder, She Wrote, where they killed people off all the time and ridiculous.
There's a stat that is something to the effect of
most people murdered or something.
Yes, per capita, per the population of the fictional town of wherever it's from. There's more murders per person in the Murder, She Wrote
where she
town.
is. Maybe she's got something to do with
because it ran so long. It ran like 10 years or something. Geez. So it was like every episode was a new murder.
They had movies and stuff. Maybe it's a secret callback,
Maybe.
It's a good cast.
Maybe that's why they had thought of her.
But no, she's great though.
But yes. So that's what they did with the Anderson character. They gave her that whole backstory, which I think is so interesting, especially when I think it's in the second to last episode of the season where Fishburne goes and talks to her and sort of is
trying to
get some information from her
without breaching confidentiality.
Yeah, which I think he tries to get around.
He does
in an interesting way, but she's of course too smart to
really
fall for that. But
yeah,
I thought it was an interesting technique, and then of course she brings that back to Hannibal.
Yeah, that answered my question about it too. That I was wondering about. Like by the end of the season, you're wondering like, does she know? And like she knows that he's. They still didn't really say.
Well, they don't. Yeah, they don't specifically.
But they heavily
draw it out, but
imply that she knows that he's up to some.
Yeah, honestly, well, she flat out says
that. Your pattern, like
yes, in that last episode, she says something about like. She doesn't specifically say it
because maybe she doesn't want to like be culpable, but like
that could be
like she might know. But because here's the thing,
tell me,
it's honestly like The Sopranos. It's like with Dr. Melfi. As long as you don't tell me something specific, I don't have to report anything.
Right.
So I can still, but I still think kind of weird after a certain point.
Very weird.
But yeah, it's like she's giving him hints like be careful, and he talks about how somebody had to die. I'm like,
well, yeah, she's like in that last episode, she's like, you're not telling me the whole truth, like you're hiding something. But she's not going to specifically ask what.
But I think she knows that he's like, when talking about these murders, she's pretty sure, which means there's like something up with her. But I think they still haven't said it exactly, but they also imply that he basically saved her, which is maybe one reason why she feels indebted to him.
She came out of retirement for him.
And he felt guilty for what happened because he recommended the patient, which put her into retirement. So they have a very interesting relationship.
Yes. So Will is losing his mind.
Poor Will, man. You said something, I think, last episode about how this Graham character was just, like, really embodied by this guy. Granted, we didn't see how tortured he was, but, like, I have rarely seen somebody just seem so tortured and haunted and just so looking horrible. Oh man,
and just generally through no fault of his own,
like poor guy,
unhinged.
Yeah, but and I said it before, man.
Tell me.
I mean, they do kind of talk about it a little later, but yeah, I mean, clearly the job would have its effect on you.
Yes,
but like. There's so many signs which
I know.
They addressed a little bit.
But that was a big theme sort of in the last batch of episodes that they sort of let go. They don't talk about it in these at all, I don't think.
Well, they bring it up in the sense that like oh man,
well, in the sense that he's losing his marbles.
It's like I told you not to go out there, and oh man, this is on you, and this person's death is on us, and I'm like, yeah, like because I've been screaming at it, I've been yelling at the screen, like honestly, when Lawrence Fishburne's character.
I know, I always forget his name.
Oh, man. I did know before, but when he was, like, talking about, oh, man, like, I trusted the psychiatrist that what was fine. I'm like, and she's yelling, I'm like, and I'm rolling my eyes. I'm like, come on. It's like, I feel very back and forth about his character. Because remember, it's like, man, you do good. I'm going to keep you on. You tell me. And he's like, oh, oh man, I'm gonna arrest you. I want to be the one to do this, and he's just like shrugging off like he's disappointed. What did you expect?
Well, right.
Like, I'm so like I have mixed feelings about. I guess because he's
about
a
their
profiler
methods
too.
of.
He's so cold, like. And obviously they hinted at. I'm not saying it's like out of nowhere, but it's one of the more frustrating things about this show so far for me is his character. It's like
the Fishburne character.
It stretches believability. I forget. You're gonna say it, and I'm gonna know.
Well, I mean, does it stretch believability though, or is it that sort of notion of, 0 F's given, and whatever the consequences don't matter because we're tracking down
but he said,
X, Y, and Z.
Like we're saving lives, so it's fine.
Right.
But yeah,
and that is how he justifies it.
I get how
that could be realistic.
I'm sure that could be realistic. That's true, but it doesn't really. It makes me sort of not love the character.
You're gonna hate yourself, Jack Crawford.
Jack Crawford.
Yep.
Crawford.
Yep.
Jack Crawford. Yeah, because he kept going back and forth where I guess it's because he's sort of cold about the whole thing and even says like, hey, just wanted to let it go, push it away. But the guy is clearly not doing good. Oh man, I saw him really passing out and getting disoriented in crime scenes, and I thought of you. I'm like, it's just, I don't know. It's frustrating. His character frustrates me.
Let's
maybe because of his bad decisions.
He does make some bad decisions.
He really does.
That certainly are not in Will's favor.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about all the use of the clocks and the imagery there.
That was good.
And the different drawings of the clocks.
Well, that was because in the last
I think
episode,
that is a really... Yeah, I think in the last episode we watched for this, which would be episode 10, I guess.
They had the brain scan where Hannibal found out he does have something going on, but he's not going to tell him, so he can just kind of experiment with him. And the clock thing was, if it's drawn incorrectly, that's a sign. He thinks, oh, it's fine. He's disoriented, can't see properly, hallucinating. And they brought up an interesting point later, though, because it kind of leads to basically Will getting framed for the for the murders. And they brought up an interesting point. Well, could he just fake it? Like he could draw it improperly and not know. And I thought, you know what? I didn't think about it because we're seeing it from the perspective. Like, how could he prove that he's not lying about how it does look normal to him?
Right.
And I was like, that's a good point.
But then Hannibal turned around the clock on him and said, "Oh, look, he just did this one
last week,
day,
which he totally made." Which is and that's great.
Yeah.
Do you like how it even said Will Graham at the bottom?
Yes.
That was such a bull.
Okay.
Like, in a random section, you just gotta write it. Why would he sign it?
Come on.
That detail was silly.
Or, well, maybe
hold on. Oh, no. He wants to do a name to ground himself. Remember, I'm Will Graham. He's like, where am I? What's my name?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So actually, that might be why.
Might be why. I actually thought maybe Hannibal. I mean, obviously Hannibal did the whole thing, but I thought maybe Hannibal signed it himself because, like he signed it as, okay, this is Will's session.
His notes for this observation.
Right. So I thought maybe that was a mark that Hannibal made.
Unclear.
For himself.
Unclear. But I'm glad you noticed that.
But of course, he wrote the whole thing.
Like, it's a complete fabrication. Right. But how could he?
Yeah, I noticed that as well. That was a little odd.
It was like, just to let you know, this is great.
Right.
Even though he's saying it like, he drew this for me last week. Man, how about Hannibal?
Well, he's definitely evolving into a little bit of the character that we know. Although these few episodes, not a lot of eating of the people.
Well,
hardly any.
At least one time.
One time
he made the veal. And I remember he waited for her to be like, and he was like,
But usually every episode we had at least one.
It's because he's tracking Will and things are getting intense. So less time for dinner.
Less time to be a great host.
Actually, I'll tell you one line I liked with the food. Actually, there is more than we think. Okay, this is great. You'll appreciate this. When Will's in the hospital, Hannibal brings him some chicken soup. But he describes it from this field and it's all this spice and stuff. And he's like, you just made me chicken soup. And I was just thinking of Fraser Crane. These were from the finest places. This is no mere chicken soup. Like, I was just thinking, all the stuff, it sounds so impressive and complicated, but it's essentially just a chicken soup.
Did you think that was people?
No.
Oh, okay. I
but
didn't think
cooking.
it was people.
But cooking.
Yes, cooking.
So
we definitely saw some.
made
You're
some
right.
soup.
You're right.
So they got it in there.
I forgot about that part.
But when he made Gillian Anderson eat that person, I was like, he was
pretty good.
He was happy about it.
You're right, because I think of it as more or less only when he has people over for dinner.
Be like the parties.
A whole bit. But I guess there's been
Less
other
time.
scenes where like they were at the stakeout or whatever, and he brought like a sandwich or whatever that was. That was like in episode 3 or 4 or something. Remember that?
Yeah, he probably made, and even said about how good the sandwich was. That was the first one.
Yeah.
We were debating, and you said the commentary said that was.
That's right. That was the pilot. You're right.
So even a sandwich, those sandwiches are banging. Those kidney sandwiches or whatever.
Love them. Love them. So, all right.
But further with Hannibal's character.
Oh, yeah.
I like what you
said
I guess
about... we just sort of scratch the surface.
Of evolving is a good one, because I liked how we really get a lot with those sessions with him, with Dr. Anderson, I'll just call it.
Yeah.
With Scully.
Dr. Scully.
Dr. Scully, basically. And I liked how we saw him kind of grieving because he kills the one girl.
Him crying in that last episode was pretty intense.
That was one of my favorite things in the whole show, actually, that scene, because they talked a lot about the grieving process and about how Lecter kind of felt like he had people figured out and his place figured out, but then like the idea of having a child never really appealed to me, but now I can see how it could. There's like guiding life a certain way, but I find that interesting. He feels this sentimental feeling of connection after he killed her. Yeah, and he's like, he is sorry. I believe he is genuinely sorry. And
I believed those tears.
Because remember,
I thought he was legit.
It's interesting because he's a psychiatrist too, so he's examining human behavior with Will, and with the girl, it's almost like he wants to experiment. Like he's my friend. She's kind of like a daughter. He wanted to almost like see if he could make them more like him. Is what he's trying to push them, because he wanted to mold her, and when she realized, oh no, it was you. And like, do you have to kill me? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Because
that was a great scene.
And I was surprised because the whole time he's always being methodical to try to not do that until he has no choice.
He had no choice at that point.
Because he's been stirring things away, but he's also observing Will to just kind of see what he does, because he wants to push it. It's weird because he says to her like he feels responsible. Doesn't really want him to succumb to these things, but he also wants him to kind of understand how he works. So it's like he almost wants to make him just a more controlled killer. Like it's which
does make sense.
Yeah,
knowing his character.
It's just it seems like with Hannibal, there's been a bit of a conflict. Like he wants to. It's like with the friend-patient thing. He wants to help Will, but maybe a part of him wants him to not get better. But yeah, I thought
that friend-patient bit.
They talked a lot about that. But I liked that a lot, and that was about it.
That was I guess that was in the last episode.
Or second to last.
Or second to last, you and I think both kind of watched them in a marathon.
We're not supposed to do that, and I always regret it, but that's how I do it.
This one at least was only 3. The one week where I watched all 5 right in a row, I just felt...
Well, they were gruesome... And everything was tough.
And these ones were not as gruesome as some of those earlier ones.
No, but they had some images. They had the bodies.
This was, I would say, more disturbing imagery.
Like with the deer person and the...
But not gore.
More just
as much as some of the earlier ones.
Dreams. The dream stuff was really creepy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't gore.
But you also knew it was a dream, so you were like, okay, well,
all right,
this isn't really happening, whatever.
I gotta say though, that deer thing, man,
that was crazy,
some great imagery.
Yeah.
With that. But go ahead with your thoughts.
But what was it? The gore. Oh, that scene.
Yeah.
And that whole plot line in general, wrapping up with the girl, that was intense.
And
I think that's some of the most emotional stuff we've got this whole season.
That too, and really just the whole Will getting worse and worse, and his disintegration mentally, and how the murders are pinned on him. He's lost time. He doesn't know. And man, this is some great writing, great filmmaking. Is I always wonder. It's such a great detail. And this show is about the details. Yeah, they have the thing where one of the things that for his hobbies is Will likes to fish, and so every episode they just randomly show him making the twine for his lures. And you think, oh, this is interesting
innocuous,
little cool thing
Yeah.
to show him trying to like, keep it together. But then they said, okay, they find like piece of hair and bone of all the pudding. I'm like, that is something a serial killer would do.
Right.
And I'm like, oh man, now just all like how meticulously she's
when they
planning
start
everything.
going into his brain activity and all of that stuff, and Fishburne, Jack Crawford, Crawford, asking, well, could Will have done this
and not remember? Because he wants him to be like, if you've done this, because he's convinced he's done it.
Right.
But like at least say he's just lost it. He's insane. He didn't just want to do it for the heck of it. He's not a horrible.
Well,
evil.
and he Crawford's looking out for him to like any
to salvage
to salvage Will as a person.
And that's why he's
at
like
that point.
even when Will's talking like, hey, like this doesn't make sense. Like I could understand maybe if I was out of it, I may have killed the last girl, but I was not
all
this
of
sick.
these other ones, right?
And he's like, "Don't tell me that. I don't want to hear that. You better have just been sick the whole time. This wouldn't be good for you." I'm like, "Oh, that's just what a rough situation."
And then he ends up in the hospital.
Yep. That was another dude. I felt this is another show. This is as bad as Game of Thrones, man. Because worse in some ways. Because
not a watcher.
Well, the thing I find interesting
a lot of people
about
dying, I don't know that.
They do that, and they got the through line of where you think one case is over, but they kind of interweave. And remember that one girl with like the decaying skin? They saved her.
Yes.
They saved this girl who was kind of killing, but she was like really mentally ill, and they were trying to save her, and you get to know her character, and Will kind of bonds with her, and then she goes out in this horrible way. I was like, no!
Yeah, that was messed up.
I felt so bad.
Yeah.
And how she went out was really creative, too.
The start of all of that, I feel like, was Lost.
Just
the show Lost, where they just
make
would,
a character.
Would murder people, didn't matter.
Because
that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that one was good. And all right, how did you feel about actually continuing on with the first guy saying he's the Chesapeake killer? You're forgetting about some gore. Our good friend Dr. Chilton gets met with the one doctor that breaks out. That's actually the beginning.
That's right.
That
was some gore
with that reporter we like. By the way, she's still number one worst character. Like, and if
she's not grown on you at all.
Dan, if there was ever any doubt, those last episodes.
Why don't they just murder her?
I don't. Can't. I'll tell you why. Because she's an attractive lady. I guess.
Do you think that's why?
It's her hair.
All right.
She's got the good red hair.
She does have some.
I guess
strong hair.
I think it's because that one episode later on, because we're also sort of summing up the season where she makes that statement, which is kind of what the show is about, how everybody is like a couple steps away from being a psychopath, and all the characters are like could be because they're so cold and detached.
Right.
She's just honest about it. I guess that's why. But like when she's just like going along unrestrained to help the other guy torture him, and she doesn't care.
That's pretty messed up.
She's clearly into it, and she's like, she gets off on writing about, and it's just,
that's how she makes her living. So for her, she just sees dollar signs. She doesn't care about the people.
There's something about that's worse than any of the other, because they're like deranged, or they're at least they're more honest about what they're doing.
And is this not a commentary on
journalism,
and the TMZ stuff, and like all this tabloid stuff?
I'd say it's over the top, but she's so.
It seems pretty real.
She's so like that's just Like Crawford was like a block her away. Like she's oh man, she's so.
Well,
bad.
Look, you brought something up that I think really does sum up a lot about this show, and that's the writing.
So good.
This is one of the smarter shows. I don't want to say that I've ever seen, but I mean, I don't watch a lot of shows where there's all these layers. Like you introduced me to The Sopranos.
Yeah.
That was probably about 8 years ago, and then since then, of course, I've seen like Breaking Bad, and I mean, it's sort of The Sopranos brought us the template, I think, of this very, very layered, and there's been obviously character-driven dramas since the 60s, 70s probably.
But
that level of intricacy, and I think Lost wanted to do that.
Well, Lost was always a little
Turned
more.
Out didn't.
They were layered, complicated characters. That was the whole show.
That was the whole show. but they sort of lost their intricacies along the way, and Here, of course, we're only the first season, who knows? But
with Lost, it's more about the lore, but Hannibal is more grounded, so you can focus on the characters more, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true, because Lost was a science
about
fiction
the
show,
island
basically.
and fantasy.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's a good point. Whereas all these other shows we're talking about, Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, are about real people.
And
not that they're
Hannibal
true life people, but
is another one. You're right.
Yeah.
On that train of a dynamic, layered, complicated anti-hero. You're basically following a villain, and in the '60s, never would have happened.
Never.
It got to be like the guy that saves the day.
Yeah. Was Tony Soprano really the first? I mean, he's got to be up there.
He's the first really
in terms
popular
of,
one.
Yeah, like maybe. Well, I mean, some movies I guess have had it.
Movies.
But in episodic weekly
to get
television,
you coming back each.
I don't know, man.
Because you remember, it's like you want to get a bigger audience. So
yeah.
I mean,
I can't think of too many.
We followed like
silly, maybe soap opera villains or something like on Dallas or Dynasty, maybe.
But they weren't usually
But they weren't layered.
Focus, yeah.
And they weren't the focus. You're right. You're right.
I'll say Oz again a little before Sopranos.
Okay.
But though I will always say with that shows a bit more. That's really the Kickstarter point, I think, for this stuff, because you're following bad people and looking at their psyche. But it's a little over the top.
Okay.
Like, it's not like as nuanced as Sopranos or something.
Yeah, and I think nuance. Yeah, that's because this show could be very over the top.
Well, but
it could be just a gore fest. It could be.
It's calculated.
Yes,
it's calculated.
Great. Yes, great word.
I was gonna say it's not restrained, but it's calculated.
It's not restrained.
Heavily stylized, but not ridiculous.
It's methodical,
like Hannibal
in its writing. Actually, you're right. Methodical,
art direction,
nuanced. It's all Hannibal himself.
I'm telling you, this is an example of trying to show this gruesome stuff in an artistic way. Yeah. The art direction, the music, it's elegant.
And the use of the color,
too. The color, like...
when they have, a drab background or room, it's like, the colors of the clothing pop even more than they would. And that's, the lighting and all of that. Everything, the costumes, everything seems just so methodical.
And refined. Like Hannibal.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. It's and I didn't quite realize it until now. But right, everything about this show basically is sort of a metaphor for Hannibal himself,
which fits because it's
his show.
Yeah, you're right. It's deliberately, I think, done from his perspective. It's like I said, it's trying to show this stuff in the most artistic, sophisticated way possible, I guess.
Well, and like we had said, like those first couple episodes were mostly about Will and Jack and that relationship, and then as the season progresses, it's more about Hannibal, more about his sessions, more about whatever. It's build up, but the whole time it really has been
his show
through his eyes, his perspectives. We just sort of got tricked a little bit into thinking.
Yeah, I remember even saying
maybe it was more about Will than Hannibal.
First couple episodes, I'm like,
it wasn't.
You could take him out of the plot. I felt like, so I was tricked a bit too.
Yeah,
but that's clever though,
very clever.
It's because like Will, you don't suspect him first in the background. Yeah, nice guy, help him with the case. He's mastermind behind it all,
and then swoops in. This is a very good season. There's 2 left. 2 seasons.
Yeah, 2 seasons.
Three and out. 13 episodes per season. So we'll have more of this. But let's. I guess we'll grade the season.
Sure.
We haven't graded any of these specific episodes, but this is a high one for me. I think it's an A- of a season.
That sounds right.
I think my. I
thought maybe A, but
I thought about that, but I feel like
I got a couple issues with it.
Well, one of my issues is, as you might imagine, the
procedural villain of the week.
Well, that too.
Some of that was there.
I feel like maybe is your issue with it more than mine.
This is more streamlined than they are, but
much more streamlined, but still,
it's a bit there.
There's a little bit of that. But no, I was going to say the gore I think is sometimes a bit gratuitous.
I don't think that's a negative.
I do. I think it's very well done, but I think there are times when they're like, okay, let's push all the boundaries we can to make it as gross as possible. And there's only been really a few times where I'm like,
And
all right, you didn't have to do it that.
And you're just
way,
saying
but
you think sometimes it doesn't really serve the story.
Yeah, I think it's gratuitous.
Which one?
Sometimes I don't know specifically, but more the early ones because, like I said, like
we gotta hook
these
people
last three, I think that was it. I think they were like that first episode was so great and so artistically done. Okay, I don't mind it in that because we got to get people in the door. Fine, but then like there were some in like maybe episode 3 or 4 or 5 that are just like, all right, we already. I mean, because I don't think anything was quite as shocking as that pilot. So I feel like at some point they were like, well, let's try to outdo the gore factor from the pilot. And to be honest, I'm not sure that they ever did.
Well, the thing is, they started to get very creative with the deaths to the point where it's...
Yeah.
And this is my issue.
A little comical, maybe.
I think some of the serial killers and villains are borderline cartoony. Mm-hmm. Like the doctor guy. I couldn't stand him.
Yeah.
He was a little silly.
Yeah.
And even our... some of them were a little underdeveloped, too.
Yeah, we didn't talk about Eddie Izzard.
Yeah,
in the episode. I always love him, by the way, and his American accent was fine.
It was fine. It was just, but he was a little
yes, I agree.
cheesy.
He was a little bit and then talk about villain of the week. You know, that whole episode almost was a throwaway.
Kind of, which is why you almost forgot about it.
Yes, and so that's why I can't really say like this is an A.
No.
I think A- is good. I think everything we've said in the positive is all true.
Yeah, it's a very good show, but I think some of the episodes are a bit uneven. Like honestly, I thought even this one, that first episode today, wasn't super great.
Yeah.
The other two were good, but I wasn't really like super hooked until the last one.
That finale was really going, guns a-blazing.
And that's the other side of Hannibal you see is that very cold detached when he's talking to Will and when he actually turns him. It's just that's that when Hannibal becomes kind of fearsome. So that's the other side you see too. And also, before we wrapped up, I did want to mention, we didn't even mention her because it's also probably negative.
That reporter you love?
Oh, no. The romantic interest. Got to bring her up. They actually gave her a little, I thought she had a good scene where she was upset in the car. I thought it was very well done. They made her makeup look bad.
I'll be honest. I thought they were actually going to...
Straight murder.
Well, no. I thought they were going to do more
with her
with that than they did. The fact that they actually didn't do that much with the romance, I actually think is maybe a positive.
Well,
right, because it is sort of.
Yeah. But they brought it up as like she was like, "Oh, we are involved and care. I'll take care of your dogs." I liked that.
Yeah, it was fine.
But
I didn't mind that she existed.
But she doesn't really add a lot.
Add much necessarily, but. I really did think they were going to sort of ramp that up and shoehorn it in.
Like, I love you so much, yeah.
They didn't, so...
But did you notice, and maybe this is just me, that her vocal inflections are a little bit like Clarice Starling's?
I didn't.
I was noticing that more this last couple. Like, I think...
Okay.
I'm wondering, is she kind of...
So maybe that was a choice.
Like, no accent, but just the way she's speaking seems a bit like Jodie Foster.
Okay, interesting.
So I was like,
I did not pick up on that.
I wondered if that was a choice. Maybe I'm just reading into it, but I wanted to just...
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I think that was the last detail I wanted to mention.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think A- is pretty solid.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, a couple of things could be improved upon, but for the most part, I mean, this show really is firing on a lot of very good cylinders.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very well done.
Love that Lecter.
We love that Lecter. Oh, actually, before we wrap up.
Oh yeah.
Speaking to the title.
Okay.
How do you feel about Lecter after this season? Would you say you like him? Nice guy? Because I
don't know if I'd call him a nice guy.
He's a pretty cool guy, right?
Well,
kind of messed
throws
up.
a good party.
Screws his friends over completely for, even though he wants to be there. I think he's very complicated.
No, I mean, of my favorite characters, he's not the tops.
Number one. I like the one. I like the lab people.
Lab people, I do love. For the majors, Will for me.
Mm-hmm. Will is actually good.
Yeah.
Jack Crawford, I think, is a well-written character. That's why I think I dislike him, because he makes me
I agree.
Angry.
I actually think he's pretty realistic in his portrayal of what somebody in his position might
be willing to do.
But I can't say I can get behind all of his decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But
what would you say in a way?
I think that's good as a character.
In a way, you love that Lecter?
Oh yeah, Who doesn't?
Well, you know what? I will.
Well, I love. Okay,
All right.
I love that Mads. I think
Mikkelsen
Mads
performance.
Mikkelsen is doing a great job here.
But I will let you know, even though this is a different performance,
Okay.
I am hoping that by the end of the show, we do get some more of those puns and some of the more smugness of Hopkins. Because otherwise, it might seem like he's like, where does that come in? Because that is pretty iconic.
I feel like by season 3 they should be doing the bits.
I think because he does do them, but they're like very quick, you know.
Yes.
But he should be like, ha 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 ha. I really love the liver.
They're a lot more
bad for your health.
now they're a lot more like subtle
Mm-hmm.
and maybe funny to us because we know
What he's doing.
and what he turns into.
But he's not mugging for the camera.
Right. He's not doing that. So, yes, I guess there could be a ramp up of that as the seasons progress.
I hope towards the end he has a little more fun with the maniacal nature.
And we should point out, Hannibal is available on Hulu
Leaving Netflix
and
right
Amazon
now.
Prime.
Oh, Prime too.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, or if you're like me, I mean, I actually got these. I think these were only $10 a piece.
Oh, nice.
DVDs. So I got the whole series for $30.
Okay.
So if you like the extra stuff like me, you maybe get the Blu-rays as well. But yes, if you were used to watching them on Netflix, they're going to be on Hulu and Prime. So you can follow along that way. But all right, thanks for watching. Joe, thank you. Great conversation as always.
Thank you.
And we'll see everybody next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.